Shall we begin? Hello, everyone. I'm Tabinda Mazhar, and I welcome you to this exciting session on Cambridge Global Perspectives, converting classroom learning into community action, and the Global Summit at large. Some of you are joining us through the Juno platform, and many more are joining through the live broadcast and multiple social media channels. A warm welcome to all of you. Before we kick off, a bit of housekeeping. Please note that this session is part of the Global Youth Summit. We strongly encourage you to explore other sessions in any of the 3 tracks each day of the summit. By joining this session, everyone who will have the opportunity to speak consents to their image and audio being broadcast. By participating in the GYS, you have agreed to behave professionally, respectfully, and be culturally sensitive towards other people, to promote the principles of respect, diversity, and inclusion, as well as to actively prevent and not engage in abusive behavior of any kind that leads to any harm, prejudice, discrimination, or harassment against any person. If you do not adhere to these principles or Summit's code of conduct, you will be removed from the session and potentially banned from the entire event, and the organization that nominated you will be notified of your actions. We have a safeguarding team moderating our interactions on the Juno platform, the live broadcast chat function, and all social media channels. Should you at any point feel unsafe or witness concerning behavior, please reach out by sending an email to safe@globalyouthmobilization.org. You may also get in touch with our support team at the virtual help desk. Emails to the email address will be kept private and confidential. I'm now going to officially start off our session and share my screen. I hope everybody can. Linda, if you could give me a thumbs up. And for everyone, you can expand the screen in your window, able to see. So Cambridge Global Perspectives, Converting Classroom Learning into Community Action, a breakout presentation by Cambridge Assessment International Education. As I shared, I'm Tabinda Mazhar, working in Cambridge International Pakistan office. And with me is my team, where my colleague Nivedita worked with us on it, but couldn't join, unfortunately. But I have Linda.
Good morning and good afternoon, everybody.
Amy Budd.
And
Sophie Hewitt.
Hi, everyone. Great to see so many here.
Thank you, colleagues. We are also doing this, just to let you know, in collaboration with UNICEF, and we will be featuring a video from Wangani Grace Taulo as we move on. So just to give you a brief program indication of today, as we've just introduced ourselves, we're going down and we hope we make 20 minutes. We are also going to give you a break in the middle for 10 minutes. So let's begin without further ado. International, we would like to know from you now if you have heard of our organization, and if you have, what do you think and what do you know about us? For this, we have put up this simple Menti code on the screen, and my colleagues will put it in the chat as well. Just click on this, type this code, and tell us, what have you heard about it. I'll give you a minute or two to do that. If my colleagues have put it in the chat, I can then move to the other screen. Linda, is that all right?
Yep, it's in the chat.
Excellent. So let's see when, we are going to get some answers about Cambridge Assessment International Education and what do you organize. It does take a minute. Okay, exams. Okay, let's see if that's right or not. Any other thing? Student-centered. All right. Education. Wow. IGCSE. None. All right. So you haven't probably heard about the organization. Well, you now have. You took the Cambridge IGCSEs. Wow. So we have a Cambridge student here. A level. Tough. Okay. Demanding. All right. Okay, we've got quite some words now. And I'll wait for another few seconds. Yeah, we've got tough. I took Cambridge IGCSEs. I don't know. So it seems that there's a mix in our audience today. There are some who know about our organization, but there are some who haven't. So glad to know that we have some IGCSE students here. But let me tell you briefly about what we exactly do. As part of the Cambridge University of Cambridge, we prepare school students for life, helping them develop an informed curiosity, as the slide, through our from primary, middle school, IGCSE, as some of you said, and even A level. So it's from 5 to 8, 19 years of education that is provided through our, not just exam, but there is also curriculum and school support that we provide. I specifically, as you know, I work as a teacher trainer, so there is a lot we do, and we help people learn, discover, and achieve their aspirations in life. Thank you very much for your responses. We seem to have an engaging audience here. Let me tell you what we will be doing now. As I said, and you must have noticed perspectives and talking about community, since this Global Youth Summit is all about that. Next hour, we're going to understand how can you think critically about a range of topical global issues and turn your inspiration into action. How you actually learn to galvanize and turn ideas into reality, achieve your dreams, achieve your passions. And then you will also understand how we can help young people build perspectives from local to global. And for this, we actually have some students with us who will share things with you. Last but not least, we will make sure that we all appreciate how students learn to work collaboratively and develop their social and emotional intelligence. These are our key objectives for today, and we hope that together we are all able to achieve them. I've been mentioning a lot of Cambridge global perspectives, and we also have one IGCSE student in our audience. If I could ask you right now to tell us, look at the 4 options. It is a subject that we offer, a qualification from primary to lower secondary, sorry, IGCSE and A level. What do you think Cambridge Global Perspectives makes you study? Does it make you study global politics, economics, issues relating to global issues, or anthropology? In the chat box, could you put A, B, C, D? What do you think it is about? And my colleague Linda will help me here as I can't see the chat box right now.
Lots of people saying C.
Okay, that's smart. All right. So yeah, so this was just to kind of get you engaged into this. Actually, it's probably not just C, but all of it. Let's see. So looking at this slide and these 3 bullets, I won't read from all of it. I will leave it for you to read. But just to pick on what we do in Cambridge Global Perspectives, we generally, the course helps break the traditional subject boundaries and do more of intercurricular things so that students can develop transferable skills. Transferable skills mean you can apply them from one discipline to another, from one subject to another, and even in life as well. So it is both cross-curricular and it is skill-based as well. And the projects that students engage with or engage with, that makes them enjoy their learning. They get into collaborative group works, they do presentations, they work on real life problems, and they get a bigger picture of the whole world, not just their school. Our emphasis as Cambridge International is to develop the ability to think critically, because reflection is one of the attributes of Cambridge learners and Cambridge teachers as well. And we want our students to have the ability not just to think about local issues, but globally, so that there is always more than one point of view, and there is diversity. I hope you will find the next slide interesting, because we are now going to, I'm going to stop talking, and I'm now going to invite 4 stories from 4 cities through our students. And they are going to tell you about their global perspectives projects, which are real life projects still going on, and they have achieved a lot. We are going to have 4 reps right now. We have one Ishal Amir from Faisalabad, Pakistan. We have then our second group with Deepa and Anushka from Mumbai, India. Then the third presenter will be Mohammad Bakir from Lahore, Pakistan. And last but not least, Dia and Anuya from Wadi, India. Right now, I'm going to invite Isha. Isha, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, so I'm moving to your first slide. Over to you, Isha.
Good morning. Isha Amir Arshad, and I am an A-level student from First Step School in Faisalabad, Pakistan. Meet Grace and Nobu. They were the first animals I rescued. They were found in the dirt in an abandoned plot suckling on a female dog with bullet wounds all over her body. A security guard had shot and killed their mother and siblings. Grace and Nobu only survived because their mother's body shielded them from the gunfire. They were 5 days old when I found them. According to the vet, they had a 1% chance of survival. After I rescued them, Grace adapted fairly quickly. She was a fighter. You could tell that she wanted to survive. Nobu, on the other hand, was too weak and sadly passed away when he was 14 days old. In honor of him, I named my organization the Nobu Foundation.
Hello, I'm Isha, and today
Generally, in Pakistan, animals are completely helpless in the face of the violence they are subjected to. It was when I saw the casual abuse faced by the stray animals on the streets of my city that I decided to campaign against this injustice. I began in 2017 when I was 14 years old. I wanted to advocate for animal rights. I started to hold presentations in low-income schools to highlight the violence animals are subjected to. However, feeling the need for a stronger movement, I decided to create an animal welfare organization, the Nobu Foundation. In the beginning, I did not have much support, except for my mother. She always supported everything I did, and when I told her that I wanted to start an animal welfare organization, she stood by me and helped me in every way that she could. A few of my friends also supported me. This moral support helped to motivate me to continue my efforts to save animals. Looking back, one of my main milestones was when I rescued my first paralyzed puppy. His name was Miles. He had a genetic deformity in which he didn't have control over his lower back and hind legs. His owner was a backyard breeder who threw him out on the streets. After I rescued him, he had to undergo intensive physical therapy, including canine hydrotherapy, to help him regain muscular control. More milestones would be when I expanded my organization to include equestrian animals and rescued and nursed abandoned baby donkeys back to health, or when I started holding presentations in low-income schools to showcase the recovery of my rescued animals and to inculcate empathy for animals from a young age. As of now, I have held presentations at 14 schools, and a few have made my animal welfare initiatives a part of their curriculum, which for me is highly rewarding. Animal welfare is not easy. It does have its challenges. Firstly, I had to face a lot of criticism from family members, friends, and relatives who thought my work was a waste of resources. Alongside that, animal welfare is generally very emotionally draining. Members of my community soon started to petition for the systematic removal of stray animals from my city. I decided to tackle this issue by expanding my operation to start a trap, neuter, vaccinate, and release initiative in an attempt to curb overpopulation and to prevent the otherwise cruel government-mandated process of culling. I'm grateful for the support of the veterinary team during this process. The TNVR initiative could not have been successful without their assistance. These projects are active efforts to keep animals safe and to recognize them as living beings worthy of existing in our midst. I have rescued 84 animals till now, but there are still thousands that are abused on a daily basis. Some survive, but most are starved and beaten to death. Animal welfare is an otherworldly experience. It has given me a sense of peace and accomplishment that I have never felt before. It has taught me how to be compassionate and how to respect other living things. It has also given me a more empathetic perspective of the world. Alongside this, it has helped me gain a wider skill set of life skills like collaboration and negotiation. I've also had to hone my listening skills and build up sharper persuasion skills. I aspire towards a kinder world, and helping animals is my way to approach it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isha. Very touching and very, very inspiring. Well done. So we'll come back to you. I'm now going to move to the second presentation, where I'm going to show you this brilliant project by the Bombay School. It's a waste management project done in Mumbai by Bombay Cambridge School, India. And we are now going to show you the video for that.
Located in the environs of the Andheri suburbs in Mumbai, India, is Bombay Cambridge International School, which has made its mark on the globe through providing international curriculum, namely CAIE. It comprises students who are actively engaged in the learning process, taking up challenges willingly and venturing ahead. It was this enthusiasm and spirit that led a group of students, under the guidance of their teacher, Ms. Deepa Maurya, to take up different projects. One such project that would see a phenomenal change in the time to come was the waste management. The pressing need for this project stemmed from the thought that dumping of waste without segregating it, besides being harmful to the environment, does not result in any obvious benefit for those around. Something had to be done.
Wrappers and even wet leftovers like the banana peels from their tiffin boxes into the same one-for-all dustbin. This dumped waste would then spill out of the bin, creating unhygienic conditions. That's when we thought of doing something to improve the way waste was handled in our school. We came up with the idea of waste management. Learning to reduce, reuse and recycle was a good start because it was an easy and a manageable task.
And I'm glad that Global Perspective gave us this platform to work on and help our schoolmates work on managing waste. Looking around in the vicinity, I noticed that waste and garbage was thrown around carelessly. Waste segregation is something that we were not aware of and also something that isn't taken seriously.
Having come to a conclusion that waste management wasn't well known or practiced as much as it should be, they decided to lessen the impact of improper waste segregation by beginning to spread awareness about the same.
When our team came together to research more on this topic, we discovered some new facts. After reading and exploring and numerous discussions with our teachers, we thought about the needs of our school. We encountered a few challenges and decided to look for alternatives to help address this issue at ground level. We planned and noted down available resources in our school to help us with our project. We also had to involve our key partners. Our key partners included our teachers, fellow students, and support staff.
We began with Global Perspective being introduced as a pilot project in our school, and it's been 5 creative years that I have been teaching the course to see my students' confidence grow and that they are discovering new and diverse ways to help. I have also witnessed them develop their personal and social responsibility. This project has encouraged students to broaden their perspective through their in-depth analysis and reflection on issues. I truly believe that teachers, learners, and the school community can make a difference to help sustain our environment.
Our first focus was to prevent waste. By conducting surveys, we assessed the current situation and planned our actions accordingly. We then conducted awareness drives and seminars where we informed our schoolmates about the impact of waste on our land, air, water, and other living things in our environment.
To segregate waste, our first action plan was to place 2 different bins for wet and dry waste. Initially, each of our team members stood near those bins to guide the students to help dispose their waste correctly. Gradually, after the period of a few weeks, the students became more aware and did the expected. The students also made sure to keep the school premises clean. We were very happy and excited to see the success of our first step. Although there was a long way to go, nothing was stopping us now. Slowly, one project led to another. We then went ahead to recycle the collected waste Tetra packs into a school bench by collaborating with a local unit.
Working on this project has not only impacted our lives to a great extent but also made us a better world citizen. I have become more cautious and sensitive towards my environment. I will always value it and do everything to take care of it.
After the successful waste segregation and management project in our school, my friends and I decided to take it forward in our society as well. My teammates and I don't shy down to pick up any waste we see around us in our school or our residential areas. Today, I can proudly say that we are having a highly sense of responsibility towards our environment, and I also believe that together we can change a lot.
This project went a long way in setting an example to the younger students, and we are sure they will walk into our footsteps to ensure a clean and safe environment.
Bombay Cambridge International School is affiliated to Cambridge Assessment International Education. And I can't thank CAIE enough for introducing global perspectives as a subject, which has changed the way students think, communicate, and collaborate these days. It allows them to study outside of their comfort zone. It helps students to look at and analyze problems and issues. They become active, empathetic members with attitudes, skills, and knowledge. The waste management projects carried out by our students was a path-breaking moment for all of us in school. At Bombay Cambridge International School, we believe that every child matters, and hence providing a wholesome education that is dynamic and engaging both inside and outside the classroom is always our endeavor. And Global Perspectives allows us to do what we believe in. Our school song aptly testifies our belief.
We are the leaders that inspire. We are the spirit of the people. We are the force that's driven to achieve the impossible.
Wonderful. So this was a great video by Bombay Cambridge International School, and we are for today. I'm now going to pass over to my colleague Linda to debrief on these two.
Hi, can you just give me a little thumbs up if you can hear me? Okay, great. Thanks ever so much. I've been making notes during those presentations, and I wanted to say first of all just how impressive and ambitious they both were. It'd be really great to be able to ask the students some questions. I know there's some on the YouTube and channel and also on the chat. Karen has asked about how you feel when you lose a rescue animal. Isha, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about that, because that must be really hard.
It is very hard. Just today, I had to euthanize a dog. It's always very emotionally draining. You become very attached to your rescues, but you can't save them all, no matter how much you try.
That's great. I'd also like to ask you, Isha, on a more positive note, you talked in your presentation about going into schools and presenting. I think you mentioned 14 schools.
14 schools.
Yeah, can you tell me a bit about what you've learned about how to get a message across, thinking about our audience and the students listening, about how to get a message across effectively to a group, what you've learned there?
Whenever I go to a school, I specifically ask them to include the youngest children they have, because for me, it's easier to convey my message to younger children. In order to engage those children in my presentation, I need to grab their attention, and which I do by being interactive. I take an animal with me for visual aid, which immediately grabs their attention and keeps them interested. I also like to present by telling them stories of my rescues, which for them I believe is more interesting and relatable. Lastly, a lot of people talk down to children and treat them like children, and I feel like that's not an effective measure. So I talk to them as adults and tell them everything and tell them all the statistics and stories. I don't talk down to them. I feel like that's essential, and that helps them maintain interest in my organization. And then they ask me questions and they ask me how they can help. So
yeah, brilliant. That I'm sure that'll be really useful for people. I'd also like to ask you, it just sounds like such a huge amount of work, and I'm really interested to know about kind of the challenges of doing a project like this, but also with studying and all the extracurricular activities that you do, how do you actually manage to do that without burning out?
I think it involves a lot of time and effort, but it's definitely doable when you have passion and when you're motivated. Animal welfare is a very demanding job, especially when I have orphaned animals, as they need to be fed every 2 hours. Even in the middle of the night, I'm appearing for my final A-level exams this year, and I had to effectively manage, study, and continue my rescue work. A lot of time I had tests in the morning, or sometimes I didn't want to get out of my bed at 4 a.m., but I knew I had to check up on the rescues and feed them, or it could be fatal for them. Once I had rescued a few baby bunnies, and I had to take them with me to school because I needed to feed them every hour. It does take a lot of effort to manage my time effectively, and I feel that if I had more support and access to a better volunteer team, I would be able to rescue many more animals and I would be able to manage my time more effectively. But even now, it is manageable for me.
Yeah, you're very, very impressive. So I've got a few more questions for you, if that's all right, Isha. I sort of some people have been asking about during the pandemic as well, and about kind of the extra challenges that the pandemic might have caused. Can you say anything about that?
Ever since the pandemic started, I could not hold presentations at schools anymore. I didn't think it would be safe for me to go to schools to hold presentations. And because I go to low-income schools, most of them don't have access to online learning platforms, so I couldn't even hold my presentations online. So that was a bit of a challenge because I really felt as though my presentations raised a lot of awareness in my city and were very helpful.
Yeah. And you also, you mentioned about kind of teams, and I know that a lot of this work, it seems that you've done this, a lot of this single-handedly. However, I know that no one can do a project like this entirely on their own. And I wondered whether you could say anything about teamwork and about working with others, and anything you've learnt that people listening that might find helpful.
I mostly set up my organization single-handedly because in Pakistan, animal welfare isn't prioritized, so nobody was interested in helping me. But people who did help me were like my team members. I strongly improved my listening skills as I tried to value the input of my family members, my friends, and my veterinary team. I also consider the principals and owners of the low-income schools I visit as my team members because they were extremely cooperative, and without them, I would not have been able to inculcate empathy for animals to the younger generation. For them to agree to let me hold my presentations, I had to be very persuasive. I had to listen to their input, and I had to almost sell my ideas to them. So I feel that it was extremely essential for me to become a good listener and to become a good communicator. And it helped me evolve as a person because prior to starting this project, I was extremely shy and introverted, and now I've become more confident in my abilities.
I think a lot of people will be astounded to hear you say that that you were shy before. So it's kind of inspiring. That. And how did you kind of overcome that?
It was really hard, but because I didn't have any help, I had to change myself and become more self-sufficient.
Do you think that is it the topic and your passion for it as well that kind of pushed you on?
It is my passion for it that pushed me on. If I wasn't passionate, I would still be that shy, introverted 14-year-old that didn't know how to be independent.
Thank you, and thank you for answering these questions. There's a question I think from, is it Sophia in the chat, and she was talking about and she was saying, as we all are, like, about the amazing work that you're doing and are raising awareness about this issue. She asks if you have a way of measuring the impact that you create when you give presentations. And I think that's quite an important thing to be thinking about. It's one thing to be doing the project, but also what is the impact of it? How can you, and the effort that you're putting in. Can you talk a little bit about that?
But after I do a presentation at a school, I give them to keep them interested, I actually give them a few challenges to do, so that which they could help, which helps engage them as well and helps them continue and my animal welfare initiatives. I asked them to do like a few small tasks. Firstly, I asked them questions to make sure they've understood everything I've said. Then I asked them to do a few small tasks, like in the morning, leave a few bowls of water outside for the stray animals, or to call, like I have an emergency number and I give them that if they see an injured animal. And I've seen that a lot of people do that. They do call me. And I've also asked, this is also like a crafts project for them. To create these small boxes for kittens and puppies in the winter, which they place outside. And so when they're cold, they can just go inside. So they use a cardboard box and some old blankets and hay to make that. So I feel like that's also very interactive for them and they have fun. And I've actually seen those around my city. So to see those is really inspiring.
Yeah, you can really then see the impact, right, in the city. I'm wondering if I can just move on. I'll come back to, there's a couple more questions coming in, but I'll just see, is there, do we have Anushka, who was part of the BCIS, the second project that we heard about? Do we have Anushka here, or Deepa? Don't think they're here, but I'm just going to say something about that project, because I think one of the things that struck me, one of the notes that I made while I was watching that, and I don't know if others want to talk about this in the chat, was there's a kind of really interesting thing about this project that I don't know if you saw, but it kind of covered the whole school. So students were educating themselves and they were educating each other, and they were having conversations using kind of assemblies, their posters, their presentations. And I think there's something really valuable there about student to student education, students having agency and them owning their projects. I'm sorry to ask you again, Isha, but do you think there's something there about kind of student agency and owning a project?
Isha, you're on mute if you...
I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute.
That's all right. Yeah, I was just asking about student agency and having and being able to sort of decide on your project and run it yourself. And I was wondering about the importance of that.
I feel like it is very important. It does take a lot of time to own up to your project and to raise awareness in others. A lot of people here don't understand that it's really difficult to manage, and they think it's a waste of time and resources for me. Even my grandparents and other family members, they're always criticizing me, and they're like, why do you do this? You've turned your house into a hospital, and like there's so many people that are dying. Why do you focus on animals? And it's really hard for me to convey the message that, yes, I know that human lives are important, but so are animal lives. You can't just neglect animals because humans are also dying. And I feel like there was a need in my city because we didn't have any animal welfare organizations. Pakistan as a whole only has 2 or 3 animal welfare organizations. So I had to step up and do something. I've always said, like my mother has always told me to be the change, and I did.
Isha, that's really interesting. You just said that thing, like it was for you to step up. Why do you think? Why do you feel that?
People here are really cruel towards animals. Even if you're in a car and you're driving somewhere, you can see animal abuse almost everywhere. Especially people use donkey carts for a lot of their transport here. So you can see them like whipping donkeys, and like you can see the donkeys' backs are all like bruised and they have lashes everywhere. And even seeing that is like, it's so brutal, and it really hurts your heart. So, and other animal, you even as children, if you go into slum areas in Faisalabad, you can see children engaging in animal abuse, and their parents don't even stop them. They tie up animals, and then they throw stones at them or hit them with sticks just for fun. And I feel like that behavior is unacceptable. And just seeing that behavior all over Faisalabad, I knew I had to do something to combat it.
Yeah, yeah. We've got a few more questions for you in the chat, Isha, if that's all right. Ashwin asks, how do you travel around to rescue animals and take care of them?
I travel. I've like rented out a van, which I use for my rescue work and for travel. So I do have an emergency hotline number that people call whenever they see an injured animal, and then I travel there and I rescue the animal, I bring it back home. I have to quarantine it first, and then I can introduce it to my other animals after providing it with the veterinary assistant it needs.
Got you. And what about Althea has asked about the length of the presentations that you're giving in schools. I think people are really interested in the practicalities of running something like this. So how long are your presentations?
I try to make them not longer than 30 minutes because I feel like after 30 minutes people start to lose interest. So I try to make it as interactive as possible and no more than 30 minutes.
Got you. Got another question here from Isha. It says it's about your approach to other animals. So this is like non-stray animals. I'm not exactly sure, but I think they're just saying kind of generally about your views about animals and I guess animal welfare.
Well, yeah, I think is this is he asking about if I'm a vegan or something?
Possibly. I think it's yeah. I think we need a little bit more clarification, but I think it's just a bit beyond that kind of. I mean, your project is about stray animals, isn't it?
Yes.
And I'm seeing here. Sophia is saying, have you thought of starting up a YouTube channel to document? And that's apart from YouTube, also, like, do you use social media in any way to get your message out there?
I tried to create an Instagram account, but I couldn't really manage it effectively. So, which is why I haven't started a YouTube channel either, because it's really hard for me to manage social media platforms along with like my schoolwork and extracurricular activities and my animal welfare organization.
We've got a question here from Amelie, who's asking about how many animals you're currently looking after. And I think that's also the part of this kind of, what's the scale of a project like this for someone like you?
Currently, I have 20 animals with me.
Right. And following that, Adam asks, are you thinking about expanding this to from something local to, something a little bit wider?
Well, the first step for me would be to create a proper animal shelter here, because as of now, it's just a home-based shelter. So I'm really looking into expanding it and creating a proper shelter for all of my rescues. And when I do that, I would be able to rescue more animals locally and nationally.
Got you. What would you like to say in terms of people listening if they're thinking about a project like this, like starting up something like this?
I would tell them they should be prepared, because it's very emotionally draining, and sometimes they have to make very hard decisions. Like when you have to put down an animal, it's a very hard decision. And the first time I had to do that, I couldn't get out of bed for 3 days because it was so emotionally draining for me. So you have to be prepared to make decisions like that. Organization is key. You need to have a proper plan before you start a project like this.
Yeah, and you should just thinking about your age and when you started this and being quite shy and everything. How did you get adults to take this seriously?
At the beginning, they didn't. My mother took me seriously because she knew I was passionate about animal welfare, but the other adults, they just thought it was a phase and that I had nothing better to do. They still think that. Well, most of my family members, apart from my mother, they still think that it's just a phase and that I'm doing something useless. But my mother was a great help to me. She acted as a mentor. She helped me set up my rescue organization at the start. So I did have a little bit of adult contribution.
And is that the same in places like in the schools? You know, how do you get a school to take? I can imagine the thought of approaching a school and saying, "Can I come in and do this presentation?" Like, how do you talk to those adults and persuade them?
Well, I started the summer I started my organization. I was actually volunteering at an low-income school, and I was teaching English and math to third grade children. So it was a low-income school in one of the slum areas of Faisalabad, and I approached the principal and I was like, I can see many of your students when they go outside, there's this dog outside and they kick it, and I really want to talk to them about that. And the principal, she was like really understanding and cooperative, and she was like, yes, you can talk to them about that. So I actually started talking to them. I took them to the dog outside and I was like, why do you hurt this dog? What did it do to you? And I pet the dog in front of them and I was like, he's not hurting anybody. Why are you kicking him? And they were like 7-8-year-old children. So I felt like they did understand, and afterwards they left the dog alone. And a few days later, I asked the principal if I could do a more large-scale presentation with other children as well on other animals, and that's how it started. And so whenever I go to a low-income school, I talk directly to the owner, principal, and I have a whole slideshow with me, and I talk to them about everything, and I just need to like sell my point to them so they let me do presentations.
You mentioned as well that some people sort of think, why are you bothering with animals? And although I want to bring this a bit wider and think of, you know, and have students think about their own projects, but just thinking about the idea of something being quite a small thing and maybe not seemingly quite so important. I wonder if you could say anything about how you persuade people and how doing something quite small can have quite a big impact.
It's demotivating when people say that what I'm doing is useless and it has no impact. But I know it does have an impact. I know that every animal I rescue is an animal that's off the streets and has a better life. And that's what I tell them. I'm like, there are so many animals in Pakistan that are abused and starved, beaten. They have no life on the streets, and I'm providing them with medical care, assistance, food. They have access to a better life, and I have convinced a few people that animal welfare is important, but there are still millions of other people in Pakistan who don't believe that animal welfare should be a thing.
Yeah. I think you're doing an absolutely amazing job. And from the comments in the chat, I can see that others agree. And it's been absolutely fabulous to talk to you. And I hope you will stay around for our second half and maybe answer some more questions after we've had our other presentations that are coming up. I wanted to say that I thought those presentations and the video clip were absolutely inspiring. I wanted to also say that we're going to have a short break now. So it's going to be 10 minutes long. So hopefully if you come back my time just before 11, but 10 minutes time, people, if you could just turn off your mics and cameras, but leave the session running on your device. And as I said, when we come back, we're going to have some more really inspiring student led projects to talk to you about. We've got a food bank project, to one about recycling clothes and repurposing them imaginatively during the pandemic. And we'll also be hearing from an organisation that we often work with, UNICEF, on the work that they're doing to support school projects. So thank you ever so much, and we'll see you in a few minutes.
Linda. We're almost back, so just 30 more seconds. I hope you're all with us. As soon as I see Linda there back in the video, I'll understand it's time.
I'm here. we've
Wonderful.
got a minute or so. Anyone who is posting questions on YouTube that have been put into our Q&A, I'll try and get to them after the next projects that we see. We'll come back and try and answer some of the questions. And if we do have the people, the brilliant BCIS student and teacher, we would love to come back and ask them a couple of questions as well, Tabinda, right?
Yeah, we're just trying to get them back on. Such a brilliant project and so much work. So excited that Linda will be asking them some questions. So yeah, fingers crossed.
And a massive thank you to Isha. There's many questions for you, Isha, and it was also a really great project.
Yeah, Isha has become our little star today, Isha. And I'm sure there are more stars coming as we present more.
Great.
Okay, so are we good? I think we should be restarting now. So welcome back, everyone. I hope you feel a little refreshed after the 10-minute break. You were able to get grab a glass of water or a cup of coffee, and after viewing the two great projects from the Faisalabad school, we're now geared up to show you some more interesting things. As part of our project, as we were telling you in the beginning, we are collaborating with UNICEF, and of course, all of you know UNICEF and the great work they are doing. So today, as co-collaborators and facilitators in this, they have sent a special video for you all to talk about the projects they are doing. So I'm just going to play that for you.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Wangani Grace Taulo. I'm the Senior Education Advisor within the UNICEF headquarter team working on education. My particular portfolio focuses on gender equity and inclusion, meaning that we have to apply a gender equity and inclusive lens to all the work that we are doing across the UNICEF footprint in the various countries where we are based. I am honored to be here today and to share the work that UNICEF is doing to transform some of the work we are doing within the education systems from what is happening in the classroom to what is happening in the community, and encouraging our young people to engage and participate in solving problems that are related to the challenges that the country is facing, but also specifically within their communities. I also want to apologize for not being able to make the live virtual session, and this is due to other commitments, but I hope my pre-recorded session will do. I want to start by just giving a brief background in terms of the work that we are doing on the right to education across UNICEF. As you know, UNICEF is currently pushing for education for every child, wherever they are, regardless of their socio-economic condition. Now we are in the phase where we are facing a global crisis, the COVID pandemic, which has disrupted learning. But we also know that even prior to COVID, education was facing serious challenges. We had a global learning crisis, according to reports by the World Bank and other partners, including UNICEF. Before COVID, we had 250 million learners, children who were out of school, half of which were actually girls. Most of these out of school children were in low and middle income countries, but also were from the most poorest households, but also children living in conflict and crisis affected countries. In Africa, we have seen that over the years, the number of out of school children is actually increasing. At the same time, even for those children that were actually in school, they were not learning or developing the skills that they needed to live and participate in their communities, but also to work, but also in a livelihood. There were gaps in terms of foundational literacy and mathematics, but also key gaps in terms of other skills such as transferable skills, digital, but also entrepreneurial skills that would help these young learners be able to engage and transform their communities. We also had challenges in terms of youth unemployment. So the gaps in the skills would actually be compounded as children move up the education ladder, and by the time they're actually completing the education system, they actually living without the necessary skills and requisites to be able to join the work industry, but also to do self-work creation. And this created much disenfranchisation amongst the young people and creating other social problems within the communities where they lived. And coupled with failures in the formal education system, we also observed challenges in terms of limitations in terms of alternative pathways that are flexible for learners and young people who cannot actually be in the school system, but need to complete 12 years of basic education from outside the school system. So limitations in terms of those pathways meant that many of the children who actually drop out of the school system or are unable to complete due to other various reasons would not have the alternative pathways to be able to do that. What we have seen with COVID is that these challenges are likely to be exacerbated. And if no action is taken now and taken immediately and doing things differently than they were done before, we face another unprecedented global challenge in terms of youth skills, but also education in general. Within our education team, our vision is really to reimagine education and ensure that every child learns wherever they are. So our goal is really about all children, including those from most marginalized populations and the vulnerable populations, including children with disabilities, of girls, and also children living in conflict and affected, crisis-affected countries, but also ethno-linguistic minorities actually have the opportunity to participate in school, learn, and also develop the necessary skills and knowledge for them to work and also enjoy a dignified life. We actually work on this vision by working to transform education systems by ensuring that learners, as they prepare for school, they are ready by participating in at least 1 year of preschool education before they join primary schooling. And as they transition from one level to the next, we want young the children around the ages of 10 to be able to acquire the foundational and emotional skills that they require to be able to sustain their learning within their education system, and also to be able to transition to upper levels of their school. And by the time they're actually completing education, we want young people, especially those from the most marginalized population, as I stated earlier on, to have the skills and also to be able to participate in various economies and even create their own economic ways of living, but also to come up with solutions to social problems within their communities. We also want these young people to have alternative pathways beyond the education system to be able to complete their 12 years of basic education. We work through the system by engaging governments through policy, curriculum, teacher development, and pedagogy to ensure that the requisite skills are integrated within the learning and education system. But at the same time, we also work with various partners to put in place flexible pathways to learning so that those that are not in this education system can find an alternative way of completing their schooling. Also, we engage in private sector partnerships to ensure that private sector actually engaged in developing the skills that learners actually need, including entrepreneurship, but also providing internships so that learners can develop those skills. Working with communities to identify local challenges and working with young people to identify the solutions from what they have learned, and also just to be part of the voices that comes up with solutions to their community challenges. I would just want also to highlight a few examples in terms of some of the innovations that we have seen UNICEF in some of the country programs. I want to highlight the example in Afghanistan, where a group of young girls actually came up with a prototype of a ventilator in the context of COVID. These are young people who used what they had learned in their classroom with UNICEF support to innovate and come up with solutions that were actually affecting their communities. These Afghan dreamers of young women led by Samaya actually worked on this COVID ventilator using locally identified resources, mostly from spare parts of cars, and doing research online and putting together this device. The team has actually even approached the Ministry of Health to approve this prototype so that it can be manufactured by various companies in Afghanistan and even beyond as a solution to emergency cases where they do not have ventilators readily available. This team worked really hard to come up with these particular devices. It wasn't like there were no challenges, but they kept the spirit, they kept going back and forth and applying their skills and innovating and of course being resilient to the challenges that they faced for them to achieve this particular goal. I have a quote there from the lead of the this group of innovators who actually said we never gave up, they kept going, and their motivation was really to save lives, and this was a drive that was unquenchable amongst these young people. Very inspiring. That is the group of the African robotics team, the young dreamers, young women who are out there to change the world. Secondly, I want to highlight an example in Rwanda where UNICEF is working with a Girl Effect on a program that's called Ninyampinga. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. And this is a group of young women who also used their learning and skills to come up with innovative ideas in terms of how could they reach to their fellow young people to change gender norms, social. So they came up with various strategies and innovative ideas of making sure that communication and behavioral change messages are actually passed on to young people across the world. They actually now have a coverage of over 80% of Rwandans who are actually participating and engaging and listening and taking part in this particular initiative. And just measuring where people's behaviors are at the moment, and then of course conducting evaluations post their interventions to see the changes that have happened in terms of those behaviors and social norms. They achieve this through a number of strategies and channels. One, through development of magazines that are targeting young people and passing on the information to them. They do, of course, radio drama as well. They do this through live music concerts, but also using the current digital pass on these messages. So these two examples really just highlight that where young people are given the opportunities and with the right knowledge and skills which they can acquire from the classroom and beyond, they can be able to change the world. They can be able to find continues to support such initiatives, more young people to engage and this forward and to innovate and come up with solutions. I've included web links to some of those projects, but if you are interested in finding out more information, you can actually contact me through UNICEF. Really wishing you a great session, and hope able to respond to some of the questions that you might have either through email or we can arrange for calls in the coming weeks. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to share the work that UNICEF is doing, and wish you the best with the rest of the session. Thank you.
That was brilliant. Thank you to our colleague from the important themes, education, every child matters, every child learns. If you have questions for UNICEF, you could post them in the chat and we will pass them on to them. For now, we'll now move on. And I'm now going to request and show you the next project from Lahore, which is about a food bank called Umeed. Our student, alumni, he is a student from Lahore Grammar School, Muhammad Bakir, who's right now an alumni, and he is an undergrad from a Lahore University. Yeah, Bakir, you are on mute. Yeah, so if you see this mic, which is off, just click on that, which says off, just switch it on. Can't hear you. It says you're on mute. So you will see the mic icon, it says off, just turn that on. No, it's still off. Can I come back to you, Bakir? I'll play the next video of the project and then we'll come back and we can fix that in the meanwhile. Okay, thanks. Yeah, so while Bakir fixes the mic and the icon, I'm going to move to our next project, which was going to be our last one, but now we will play that. It is from the Galaxy School Wadi, India, helping the underprivileged during a pandemic. Sounds very fascinating, so I'm just going to play that for you now, and let's watch the video from there.
Greetings from the Galaxy School Wadi. My name is Anuya Mudholkar and I teach Global Perspectives from grades 9 to 12. My students and I are delighted to get an opportunity to share our project with you. Last year has been exceptionally challenging for all communities across the world. This did not leave our students as well as educators behind. We grappled with unforeseen situations, especially with our yearly team projects. These team projects, as a part of the Global Perspectives course offered by Cambridge Assessment and International Examinations, aims to give our students a chance to look at a range of global issues. This presentation will focus on one such team project, Recyc Style. Due to the pandemic, students saw a great divide existing in their communities. It was simple. There were those who could afford masks and those who could not. Therefore, students decided to make masks out of recycled clothes and distribute them in their local communities. Let's hear from our students about their learning processes and takeaways.
At the start of the project, the pandemic and the lockdown urged us to think of ideas to prevent the widespread. But we wanted to do this in a cost-effective and affordable way. That's when the idea of giving back to the underprivileged community popped in our heads. The simplistic idea of making masks using old scraps of clothes at home seemed like the best proposal to fulfill the need of our core objective, recycle for a better lifestyle. It gave us a chance to provide necessities such as a mask to the needful in the time of pandemic and financial crisis. We had multiple setbacks when it came to publicizing our objective due to the lockdown conditions. However, we found an alternative and used social media to create awareness about our initiative. We made a website that had mask tutorials, background research, team objectives, as well as our other social media platforms that helped make this project be well known to the entire community.
After we selected our objective of making masks from old cloths and raising awareness in the society, we did extensive research on possible ways to achieve this during lockdown. We divided the task between ourselves. While two people managed the creation and promotion of our online social platforms, the others focused on creation and distribution of the masks. We gathered clothes from neighboring houses, sanitizing and cleaning them appropriately for the use of masks. Masks made were washable and tested by us to ensure the ease of utilization. We even reached out to our local Rotary Club to distribute masks. The lockdown made it impossible for us to do, which led to inefficiency in communication and delays in tasks. But at last, we pulled through and achieved our objectives.
Talking about the difference is that only we gave me something completely our homemade mask, but we also had a video tutorial and an e-handbook showing how easily to create the masks with just everyday things at your home, which also helps them get out of their boredom in the lockdown. Moreover, we also had a website showing our recycled products, infographics about the situation we were helping out, and also our social media handles. This helped in many ways, as showing these tutorials, handbooks, and infographics to people was really easy because it was all digital and we everyone in our contacts get this information and get to know how even they could help out or make their own masks at their home.
I believe that after finishing the project, each one of us will definitely perceive a piece of clothing in a different manner. Every time we think about either buying new ones or throwing old ones, after having the impact ingrained in our heads, which is what happens when you take steps to spread some kind of awareness out there. If not being able to consistently and consciously spread awareness about the topic, at least us as individuals will carry forward that improvement in our lifestyles. Nonetheless, our peers would also be affected by the same because they are not only seeing the outcomes like everyone else, but also our processes and the cause behind it.
This project helped me realize the immense impact of the COVID crisis on underprivileged people and how recycling clothes can solve many problems. It shed new light on how recycling can provide so many opportunities, which also affects many aspects of my life.
This project made me more aware about how we should all appreciate what we have and made me realize how things that we don't use could be life changing for others if we have the right perspective to look at it.
This project pulled me out of my excessive self-consuming thoughts and urged me to widen my horizons and glance at the rest of humanity. It taught me the importance of taking a small step and providing help to the underprivileged community for their betterment and well-being.
Wonderful. I'm sure you are as inspired seeing this as I am. So well done to the Wadi School. We're now going to again request Bakir to try if we can hear him now. So we'll move to his project. Bakir, can you give it a try now? If you could put your video on as well, see, because we can't hear you. Okay, no, it still shows it's off. If the moderators can help us here, is it possible for you to quickly help us? Otherwise, I have a recording and I can play that for Bakir. I'll just check for us. Okay. Okay, so while Bakir is refreshing, I'm just going to tell you a bit about the project that he is going to talk about. As I was telling you, Bakir is an alumni of a school called Lahore Grammar School in Lahore, which is a private school. And he started this project there when he was studying there before he graduated from the school. And right now, he told me that he's studying and doing his undergrad from Lahore University of Management Science. I think we can hear him.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please, loud and clear.
Wow, okay. I'm so sorry for the delay.
Not at all. I'm just going to share the screen and over to you, Bakir.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Mohammed Bakir. I'm an alumnus of Lahore Grammar School, Gulberg. I'm speaking today on behalf of the Umeed project. Umeed is a word from the Urdu language, which means hope, a hope to bring about a change in our communities, a hope coupled with an active effort to improve the lives of the people around us. The reason why this journey was made way easier for me and my friends who started this project was because we had already gained a lot of first-hand experience of on-field work, which is required in carrying out various projects in school. For example, different competitions hosted by an institution, from a local to a regional level, you learn how to deal with people, colleges, officials working in a very professional capacity. Also, before I start talking about the project itself, I want to start by thanking my school for the grooming that it has given us over the years, the values instilled in us from the very get-go. These values really help you to learn how to be empathetic towards other people who are not as privileged as you are. So about the project, we started our operations back in 2019. That was the first year of our work. This was the month of Ramadan, and we had this aim of providing iftar food to people in Lahore living in slums and other underprivileged areas of the city. To give some background, iftar is the time of the day in the holy month of Ramadan when after 15 hours approximately, Muslims break their fast during the evening time. In 2019, the donations that we received were enough to provide iftar to 3,500 people in one single month. This was much more than what we had aimed. We had thought of around 2,000 people, and we got to help around 1,500 more people than we had planned. In 2019, we had similar ambitions, and we decided let's work on this project once again. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, iftar gatherings were not really possible anymore. So we decided let's not stop what we had started and let's shift our focus towards giving out ration boxes for these families who are affected the most during the pandemic. We know how people lost their jobs, the economy was in shackles, so this was very important during that time. Exceeding our expectations yet again, we managed to serve around 600 different families during that month of Ramadan. This was the second year of our operations. In the third year, we decided that since both the initiatives, the iftar and ration drives, were very successful in the first and the second year, let's work on both of these side by side. Currently, we are serving 200 people every day since the first day of Ramadan. It's the 11th day today. These 200 people were divided in groups of two. So 100 people we are serving 100 people on two different locations so that appropriate social distancing protocols can also be followed. With the ration drive, we had given out 70 ration boxes in the first 6 days already, and the number keeps on increasing as we move on. Moving on to the sources of funding, we had two major sources of funding. Firstly, the Hasanat Trust. It is a UK-based NGO. It is famous for Ma'am Tabinda. It was the previous slide, and if you look into the notes section, you would get the part about funding. But I'll explain as well. So, firstly, the Hasanat Trust. It is a UK-based NGO. It is famous for providing support to refugees in countries like Africa, Iraq, India, and the European Union. We are glad that they have trusted us with their finances since 3 years now, and the NGO has now directed its focus towards projects like Umeed in Pakistan. Secondly, the funding that we received was through word of mouth. It did take some time at first, but we eventually realized that relatives, friends of friends, university students whom we reached out to through our closed WhatsApp and Facebook groups were giving our project an overwhelming response. The funding that we had required in year 3, which is the current year, is more than double the amount that we needed in year 1. So we've expanded quite a lot since then. At Umeed, we also believe in complete transparency, and we have since day one kept official records for expenses, donations, surpluses that we've made over the years. These records are available to access for the donors at any point in time. So an example of the records that we've kept is of the ration boxes that we've given out. So we've maintained a document, a database, which includes the name of the people who received each ration box from Project Umeed. If you move on to the next slide now. So we at Team Umeed are extremely grateful for the massive financial and moral support that we received from friends, family, donors from organizations, clubs and societies from schools and colleges that have supported us. And we really hope that we live up to the expectations of our donors, hoping to use their finances for the optimal use. As we reflect back on our work over these years, there are many learning points from this. Firstly, there's nothing more joyful than being a source of help for people who are not as privileged as you are. You know, when you put yourself in the shoes of people around you, you realize how you need to be more empathetic towards others, and it also converts you into a very grateful human being as well. So in the words of my economics instructor in high school, always strive to explore the best version of yourself, and that is all that we have been trying to do over this time. We hope that we continue to contribute at least something more at every time we go out and do what we do. Feel free to look into our social media handles as well. We really hope you're satisfied by the work that we have been doing. And thank you so much for having me here. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Bakir. Again, very inspiring. I'm going to pass on now to my colleague, Linda, to talk to these students.
Yeah, thank you so much. Please keep on camera back here, because I would love to ask you a couple of questions. I mean, the two examples that we saw in the UNICEF project clip of the Afghan dreamers who were able to apply their scientific knowledge that they'd learnt at school, and the gender norms brand work in Rwanda, it really demonstrated, I think, what an astonishing impact that what starts as quite a small project can go on to have. With the students that we've just seen your project, and also about the one for the Galaxy School, I'd like to ask you about research, about the research that you did for your projects. How important was that, and how did you find kind of trusted sources? I don't know, Bakir, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, so about the research, before we started this project in school as well, we had worked as volunteers for similar food banks as well. So we had this first-hand experience in that regard, that we worked with different projects who were working towards, to the same goal of providing food to the poor, and we realized that we also, since we had this experience of talking to people who were organizing these projects, we learned a lot from that. And when during all of this all this volunteer work, we realized that there's a real gap that needs to be filled. So for example, we look when you work with a particular project, you learn that there are things that can be improved. So for example, there was this project that we worked with, a food bank, and we realized that they were working for these housing areas which served as the outskirts of posh areas in which these people lived. So for example, we realized that the people who were working on these projects, who initiated this food bank, were only serving these outskirts and settlements living there. So what about the people who are inherently, what about the areas which are inherently underdeveloped, right? That group, that particular area was not being catered to, and we realized that this is where we should step in as Project Umeed, and that is where we started working on. So when you work on a particular project as volunteer, you learn a lot. You get a lot of first-hand experience from that.
That's great, thank you. Dia, do you want to come in here with anything about the research that you did for your mask project?
Yeah, I feel like the research played a huge role in identifying, understanding, and empathizing with the needs of the community. We conducted online research to gather information about the issue from various perspectives of global, national, and local levels. We look for organizations working on similar lines, such as shoe recycling NGOs, and how their procedures work. To implement the recycling methods we learned about, we found several techniques from credible websites like the WHO on how we could make masks from clothes at home itself. And we also ensured that these techniques were tried and tested by professionals, as eventually such evidences are imperative when amplifying information to an entire community.
Brilliant, thank you. I'd like to ask you both as well about kind of communication online. You know, we're in the middle of the pandemic. How have you been able to? Do you have any tips and advice about how a team works online? Becky, shall I come to you first?
Sure, I can go first. So when you're working online, even if you're not working in an online situation, the most important thing that I've realized is that you divide your work, right? There should be a perfect division of duties, and everyone takes responsibility of the task that they have been assigned. So for example, in our case, we made this model in which we divided every department into for different people. So for example, 3 people in charge of transportation, 3 people working for the packaging of food, 3 people handling finance. So everyone specializes in their own duties. And obviously when someone's not available, the others step up. And communication online has been improved immensely over the past few years. So it has been made very simple through WhatsApp groups, or even if you want emergency meetings, you can have Zoom, right? And you can always move to these use these avenues of communicating. And if everyone knows their work, it becomes really easy. So that's been a good experience in that regard.
Thank you. In the interest of time, I'm just going to ask, there's a couple more things that I think people listening might find really useful, particularly. Dia, you talked about using a third party, I think it's the club, for mask distribution. And I wondered if you could say anything about, the challenges or the opportunities of finding and working with third party organizations.
Finding organizations outside of school that we were working on this outcome was in itself an obstacle, considering there weren't many available to begin with. But Rotary Club's youth initiative, known as the Interact Club, which all of the students at our school are a part of, have the experience in helping us undertake such projects. They were a great resort to know better about executing such distributions, especially in a pandemic where you have to take precautions. Not to mention that living in a relatively smaller city builds a sense of community, and everyone is more or less willing to help one another in times of crisis.
That's great to hear. Back here, there was something I noted down when you were talking. You talked about hope and active love, and that it was a combination of those things that allowed community action to develop, which is kind of really lovely to hear. And you also mentioned about your school, and you thanked them, and you talked about how they modelled values. And I think a lot of the projects have talked about empathy and the importance of that. Some people think school should just be about subject knowledge. You should just be kind of getting on with your subjects. Why is it important to do these kind of projects? How do they prepare you for the next stages of life?
So I would like to tell you that my school unknowingly or knowingly has played a big role in the motivation that we developed regarding this project. And it's also about how you look at the courses and the subjects that you're studying, right? So if I talk about myself, I'm an economics major, right? And I had studied economics in school as well. So the field of developmental economics has always intrigued me, and my economics lecturers have all really encouraged me to do something about the economic disparity between the rich and the poor that we always discussed. And even if I applied that to my own situation, so we friends were sitting down and we discussed how on iftar tables, right, there's this the people, for example, even my own family would have 4 dishes rather than 2, right? When two can suffice, why do you need four? So I talked to them. I said, okay, the extra money that you're spending on that food, give it to me, and then we work on Umeed's project so that people who don't afford such food can have that, right? Apart from that, my one of my A-level courses was global perspectives and research as well. So it involved a project in which we research on and propose solutions to the discrimination faced by the transgender community worldwide. So we conducted research on that. We conducted primary research like interviews with individuals of the community, and secondary research, of course. So, from that point as well, we learned to empathize with these people. With on-field research, we learned about the plight of communities that were marginalized, for example, right? So my courses and my school work had really helped me develop this sense of responsibility for my community in my city.
Brilliant.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I just want to also ask a couple of things. There's been a question on YouTube for you, dear, from Meta. What inspired you to create and provide the masks? How did the project, where did you get your inspiration from for that?
Well, talking specifically for masks, I think that even though the government spreads awareness online, and even though we ourselves are spreading awareness online through Instagram or websites and everything, it's always that the privileged ones, the socioeconomically privileged people are aware of what is going on and the COVID situation itself in India. But the underprivileged don't always understand all the norms that should be followed in such a serious pandemic. So it was imperative that we took a step to do something about the masks distribution, because the government does everything, but it is always helpful to help them get to the underprivileged.
Great. That's brilliant. Thank you ever so much. And there was also a question that came up just before the break. So I don't know if, Isha, you could also turn on your camera and mic. And if we have Anushka from BCIS, that would be amazing as well, if you could do the same. There was a question from Benjamin who asked, he was talking about something that perhaps you guys will be able to relate to and comment on, about the idea of like being that person who raises a serious topic and they're seen as a bit of a killjoy. You want to do this project and people about community. He was talking, I think, about the environment. How do you sort of, address that, being seen as the sort of person who's being, I don't know, the killjoy? Any of you want to go first?
I guess Dia or Isha can speak in a better manner on that, because I received a lot of support from the people around me, and I think what the work, for example, Isha is doing, she must have faced a lot of challenges. So I guess she can explain it in a much better manner.
Isha, do you want to come off mute and
Sure. Yes, like for me, my community wasn't supportive at all, and there were many challenges, especially with my friends group. Either they said I was too serious or too immature for wanting to go towards animal welfare, and for me that was like really strange. I was like, I'm doing something to make the community better, but nobody wants to help me. And I did ask people to volunteer or to foster for me, because I do need a lot of help in fostering these animals, but nobody was interested, especially nobody from my age group, because they're not, like, especially in my city, not a lot of people are interested in animal welfare. I think when you do projects like this, it kind of isolates you from people who aren't interested in making the world a better place.
Got you. Dia, do you have anything to say on this one, about this idea about being, not being fun?
I don't feel like we faced a lot of criticism for this project, but there were always people saying that, oh, but the government's already doing stuff for the COVID situation. So maybe that's a bit of a line that where they questioned our project. But otherwise, I feel like everyone was very supportive about our project, because we already know that the government was facing issues because India's situation is like at the extreme when talking about COVID. So everyone was happy that we were doing something for the underprivileged.
Yeah, sure. That's great. Let's can I also ask you about kind of generally all of you coming together and your reflections on your projects and any advice that you would give to people who are listening? Can I start with maybe Dia again?
So when starting projects, it's always like, so where do you start? So I feel like researching is an imperative part. Like it's the most essential part when doing or starting a project like this, especially for the community, because you need to be well versed about what you're doing when you're doing this for someone else. It's like you have to be aware of every little thing that is going into this. So I think reading about the situation from different sidelines is the most important thing, and something I would advise not missing out on. And also checking out the resources that would help you into doing this effectively, that how you can increase the scale of impact. So yeah.
Got you. Really helpful. Tabinda, do we have time to talk some more, or shall I do some summing up now?
We had 11 minutes left, 3 minutes back, so I think we still have around 6 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I would love to know then that same question to Isha and Bashir, please.
We'll just request them to be quick. And, thank you. 4 minutes left.
I agree with Dia. I feel like the most important part would be researching. Firstly, researching on what you want to accomplish, researching on what your community needs, and actually interacting with your community members and making sure that they're engaged in the project. And I also feel like it's really important to plan out your project and to like make specific timelines of what you want to accomplish and when you want to accomplish that.
That's great. So kind of really practical stuff. Yeah, getting that as well as that empathy and the vision for the project, but actually knuckling down and kind of making your plan. And to you?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think they have put it very nicely, but adding on to that, I feel that considering my own example, I was always this nerd who would never do anything other than studying, right? So there was this fear of missing out on academics. So I feel like if you have some sort of ideas, you will always find people who have similar ambitions as you have. So work with them, just start, and eventually you will find the way to, make a difference. So you will be able to juggle between work and study. So just go on and start what you have planned.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. I hope you'll just stay for my summing up of some of the things that you've said, if that's all right. Tabinda, I think there's a slide with some of the points that I was thinking about from what we've heard during this session. But I also want to say,
I'll just bring it on.
Brilliant. There's been so many questions and comments, and I hope that even if my question hasn't been exactly your question, I hope that I've kind of covered it and the students have covered it when they've talked about some of the challenges and opportunities and the ways they've dealt with these things. So some of the learnings that I kind of really picked up on was the importance about kind of this groundwork, about the educating yourself about the topic, how big it is, what's already being done out there, and what's missing to kind of find that opportunity. The students kind of also made that link between applying the knowledge that they learned in school and then taking it out, because I think one of the things that we really see people struggling with is like doing something in class and then taking it out into the community and actually making a difference. I think this is, I passionately believe this is something where global perspectives, the subject of global perspectives really helps, because it links across the subjects. and it helps you develop those important skills, the research that Dia was talking about, the presentation and communication skills that Aisha was talking about, and so on. And finally, I think they talked a lot about actually how motivating and how energizing it is to do something that has a tangible impact in the community. That really kind of drives it forward. It's not dry. It really brings it alive. And I think thinking about the things that you guys have talked about today and the conference themes here at the Global Youth Summit about reinventing disrupted education and looking at how the pandemic has affected both formal and informal education. And also looking at how communities can work together to overcome the challenges that are there within them. I think has been, I think you've really kind of hit those key themes today. And I thank you very much for that. It would be fabulous if in the chat, if people who are listening and engaging, if they could think about, what key issues that that you actually identify as a focus now, particularly in the time of this COVID recovery. That would be very interesting to hear. I think I'd just really like to thank you all. It is fabulous to hear from students and to hear how you galvanize and how you deliver these fabulous, great community projects. So from Cambridge International and Cambridge Assessment, UNICEF, and all of us, I think we just want to say a great big thank you to you all. It's been inspiring.
Thank you, Stu. Thank you to all our audience, Linda, Sophie, Amy, and Nivedita, we can't forget. So, and very sorry to the school, that we couldn't take on, the waste management project. So sorry about that, but thank you to everyone.
Thank you for having us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for giving us this opportunity and this platform.
Thank you.
It's such a pleasure to have read and heard your presentations and then actually get to talk to you. I don't know if it's exciting for you, but it's super exciting for me. And when I was preparing and looking at your projects, yeah, genuinely, really inspiring. You guys are going to go on and do even more amazing things.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Bye. Take care.
Thanks for your time. Bye-bye.
Shall we log off then? Yeah.
I think so. Should we chat on Teams?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.